one of the hardest parts of growth that nobody really talks about is loneliness. And I am not talking about physical loneliness, the part where you're being surrounded by nobody. No, that's not the loneliness I'm talking about. The loneliness I am referring to is the kind that happens when your mind is changing, when your priorities are changing, when your desires are changing, when your values are changing, and suddenly you no longer fully fit into the spaces that once felt familiar. Welcome back to Unmask with Ladon. Today, I want to talk about the loneliness of becoming, because I think many people are secretly grieving the versions of them they can no longer return to. And as beautiful as growth is, it's also very uncomfortable, because every new version of you requires an old version of you to die. Your old habits will die. Your old thinking will die. Old environments will die. Old coping mechanisms will die. Old relationships sometimes will die. Most times, I see people celebrate transformation without talking about the emotional cost of transformation. Because becoming someone new can feel incredibly isolating. I know what it feels like to outgrow certain conversations. I know what it feels like to outgrow certain mindsets. I know what it feels like to outgrow certain environments. Not from pride, not from superiority, but simply because your spirit is pulling you in a different direction. And that can create tension, because sometimes the people around you are still relating to the old version of you, while you are trying to become someone new. They still expect the same patterns, they expect the same responses, they expect the same mindset, they expect the same level of comfort they had with you. And meanwhile, internally, something inside you is shifting deeply. And I think one of the loneliest feelings in this world is feeling misunderstood while trying to evolve. Especially when you yourself cannot fully explain what's changing inside of you yet. All you know is you cannot just continue living unconsciously. You know you cannot continue shrinking yourself. You know you cannot continue betraying yourself to maintain comfort or acceptance. So you begin changing quietly. And quiet transformation can feel invisible to other people. One thing I have realized about growth is sometimes it makes your life look confusing before it makes it look successful. And that is very important to understand, because there are seasons where your external life may not reflect your internal evolution. You may look uncertain externally, while internally you are becoming stronger than ever. You may look slower externally, while internally you are healing deeply. You may look lost externally, while internally you are becoming honest with yourself. But unfortunately, the world usually only celebrates visible transformation, not internal transformation. And the internal transformation is the other work. One thing I've also realized is becoming requires separation. Not necessarily isolation from people completely, but separation from environments, habits, and patterns that no longer align with who you are becoming. And separation can feel lonely because familiarity is comforting, even when it's unhealthy, even when it is limiting, even when it's keeping you small. Human beings naturally crave belonging. So when growth starts disrupting familiar patterns, part of you feels emotionally uncomfortable. You start wondering, am I changing too much? Will people still relate to me? Will people misunderstand me? Will I end up alone? All these thoughts start roaming your head. And honestly, sometimes growth does change relationships. Not because anyone is evil, not because anyone intentionally hurt you, but because alignment matters. Some people were only assigned to the previous season of your life. Some people only knew the survival version of you. Some people only connected with the version of you that constantly abandoned yourself to keep everyone comfortable. So when you begin setting boundaries, speaking differently, thinking differently, living differently, it naturally changes certain dynamics. And that can hurt, even when growth is necessary. I think the reason why many people delay who they are truly becoming is because they are afraid of the loneliness that may come with it. They are afraid of disappointing people. They are afraid of being misunderstood. They are afraid of no longer fitting in. They are afraid of losing connection. So instead, they remain in environments that no longer nourish them emotionally, mentally, or even spiritually. And slowly, they begin losing themselves, which in my opinion is a more painful way to live. Being physically present where your soul no longer feels aligned with. I'll tell you one thing I am learning slowly, and it is not all loneliness is bad. Some loneliness is transition. Some loneliness is growth. Some loneliness is the space between who you are or who you were and who you are becoming. And in that space, something important happens. You begin hearing yourself more clearly. You begin understanding yourself more honestly. You begin discovering what actually matters to you without all the noise, without constant external influence, without constantly performing for acceptance. And what this season has taught me is that sometimes becoming often happens quietly before it happens publicly. Before people see the confidence, there was confusion. Before people see the clarity, there was uncertainty. Before people see the courage, there were private battles nobody knew about. And maybe that's why for me, I no longer want to romanticize transformation, because transformation is not always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like grieving. Sometimes it looks like uncertainty. Sometimes it looks like crying quietly while still trying to move forward. Sometimes it looks like questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself. But I also believe one thing strongly. Something beautiful happens when you stop abandoning yourself for belonging. You become lighter, you become more peaceful, you become more honest, you become more aligned. Because I don't know about you, but pretending is exhausting. Wearing mask is exhausting. Performing versions of yourself just to maintain acceptance is exhausting. And eventually, your soul gets tired. If you're listening or watching me today and this season feels lonely, I want you to know something. You are not failing because your life feels unfamiliar right now. You may simply be evolving. And evolution often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. So do not rush yourself back into environments that no longer align with you simply because growth feels lonely. Do not shrink yourself just to maintain temporary comfort. And do not mistake transition seasons for permanent isolation, because sometimes life has to separate you from what no longer fits before it introduces you to what truly aligns. So today, I want to leave you with a thought and not a question. Maybe the loneliness you feel right now is not evidence that you are losing yourself. maybe it is evidence that you are finally finding yourself. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Unmask with Ladon. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, remember, outgrowing old versions of yourself may feel lonely, but betraying yourself feels even lonelier. Share your thoughts in the comment section. I would really love to hear from you. Let me know what you think about this series. Like, subscribe, share with someone you really love. Toodles!